Quite some time has passed since we first caught our first glimpse of Skull and Bones at E3 2017. With numerous delays, changes in the design team, and silence from the developers, could the Skull and Bones we've seen be dead in the water? And could this mean that land gameplay may actually find its way to the shores of this long-awaited title? When the lights went down on the Ubisoft press conference at E3 2017, a lot of us in the gaming community were excited for what we saw could be the spiritual return of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. A new time period, an open world to explore, team-based naval combat, and what seemed to be a good deal of strategic depth, there was a lot to love and a lot to get excited for with Skull and Bones. Once E3 wrapped up, the development team, including the game's creative director at the time, Justin Farren, began doing interviews with the press, and even more details began to emerge. The game would have a multi-region open world. You'd be able to disguise your ship to slip past enemies. The game would be supported for the next 5 to 10 years. There would be a narrative campaign, and while there wouldn't be any land gameplay or extensive boarding combat, there would be plenty of other mechanics and distractions in the game to keep us occupied. It all sounded incredibly exciting, and then silence. The team was hard at work. Beta registration opened, and every now and again a new piece of concept art would be posted on the Skull and Bones Twitter to keep the excitement alive. E3 2018 arrived, and now onto the stage Justin Farren appeared again. This time with a trailer that had a lot more style, a lot more character, and even showcased a player hub, more combat mechanics, the open world, and even a sliver of the narrative that would be in the game. It looked absolutely amazing. It seemed incredibly exciting, and even more, they had a playable demo for people at E3. Everything pointed to the idea that the development of the game was progressing well, and that we may even see a release of the title at the start of 2019. The community for the game was growing. The anticipation for the game was growing. The development team went back to work. Then, on the 11th of September 2018, 3 months after E3, it was announced that Justin Farren was leaving Ubisoft, and the game was going to be delayed until 2019-2020. Now, I did make a video on this at the time, and I wasn't overly worried. From what we knew at the time, I had assumed that Ubisoft were delaying the game not because it wasn't finished, but because they had already made enough money that year and were delaying the release to balance out the next fiscal period. With regards to Justin leaving, that equally made sense. We see this in the gaming industry where once a game is more or less complete, a lot of the people who worked on it move on, and at the time I assumed that that was the case. In hindsight, knowing what we know now, I don't think that was the case at all. I don't think we'll ever know the true reason behind the delays, or if there was anything more to Justin Farren's departure, whether it was creative differences, a change in direction that not everyone agreed with, who knows. All we do know is that since that point the game has been getting delayed again and again. Since September 2018 we haven't seen any new gameplay, we've not had any new information. Ubisoft Singapore have been radio silent. Because of this, there's been a lot of chatter and debate about whether the game has been cancelled, whether it's dead, but I believe this couldn't be further from the truth. I think Skull and Bones is alive, and I hope that it's only a matter of time before it crashes over the waves once more. So here's why I think that. There have been multiple delay announcements from Ubisoft, but not once have they stated that the game is cancelled. The game is always referenced in their fiscal reports, which means that they are still putting money into development, and I would assume they hope to at some point make a return on that investment. However, I think the next time that we see Skull and Bones, it'll be a very different game from the one that we were initially shown. The last time we saw the game, it looked quite polished. It looked like it was, or at least could be, very close to being finished. With that in mind, there would seemingly be no obvious reason to delay the game for an extra 2 to 3 years unless it was either being reworked or being completely rebuilt from the ground up. Ubisoft usually work on a 4-year development cycle on their titles. In 2018 it was initially delayed, and with the current release schedule slated for 2021 to 2022, that would give the development team an additional 4 years on top of the time that they've already spent developing. With Justin Farren no longer at the helm, I think it's reasonable to think that the creative direction of the game will have altered. While it will likely still be a pirate game set in the Indian Ocean, I think the form that it takes will change, and some of the key features people asked for initially that we were told weren't in Skull and Bones could sneak their way back into the title. It's no longer impossible to suppose that land gameplay, boarding mechanics, the ability to name your ship, and many more mechanics actually may be in Skull and Bones as it exists in this new form. Is the Skull and Bones we knew dead? I think so, but I don't think the game as a whole is. All we can do at the moment is wait. Wait and see what the dev team show us next. Wait and see if we get a concrete release date. Simply wait. Regardless, I'm going to keep on talking about this game until we either have it in our hands or until we get news it's been completely, finitely cancelled. So if you want to stay up to date with all things Skull and Bones, hit the subscribe button down below. But until next time, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here on my channel. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you all soon.